All right, so here we go. Article, U.S. Chess Federation Online. It's an interview with Magnus Carlsen. I have not read it, so this is my first time. Just have a swig of water. All right. Okay, here we go. We're trying to grow chess. An interview with Magnus Carlsen by American Grandmaster Jonathan Tisdall, who currently lives in Norway. Okay, let's scroll down. Introduction. 1 second. A much longer version of this interview appears in this year's final issue of the Norwegian Chess Federation magazine, Norsk Sjakkeblad, appearing in mid-November 2020. The piece was my editorial farewell to the job and a chance to explore a very turbulent year or so for the champion at home, after a series of high-profile episodes eventually led him to make the symbolic gesture of withdrawing from the National Federation. His endorsement of a proposed deal for Federation funding from a cooperation with gambling giant Kindred sparked massive national controversy, and this was eventually followed by him becoming an ambassador for Unibet. Gambling is run by a state monopoly in Norway and is both a thorny and touchy subject. Magnus remains active, supportive, and a representative of the Norwegian Federation. His lack of membership was a protest against the heated and hostile rejection of what he felt was a unique and unmissable chance to finally fund the chronically impoverished organization. Although Magnus and I were clubmates at Asker during his late childhood, and I had the entertaining experience of captaining the Norwegian Open team at the Baku Olympiad in 2016, where Magnus led the squad to Norway's best ever finish, I've never had a chance to really quiz him from a journalist's seat. In recent years, whenever this was a possibility, there was always someone higher up where I was working who would grab this opportunity for themselves. Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so a picture of Magnus. Okay, let me keep scrolling. All right. This interview somehow automatically took place in English, which is worth mentioning even if it only had an impact on the version translated and used in the Federation magazine. As our conversation evolved, it became very clear that segments of this interview would be of particular interest to a U.S. audience, and Magnus graciously granted permission for me to publish this in any other channels I felt fit. As always, Magnus speaks his mind and pulls approximately zero punches. He also repeatedly reveals the high standards he demands of himself over the board, virtual or physical. Some of my previous writing might be interesting as background context. My piece on the creation of Magnus's global Offerspill Chess Club and an explanation of this and the Kindred case for a non-Norwegian audience in New in Chess, and a look at Magnus's history for being outspoken and admittedly naive. The latter article might shed some light on some of the things he admittedly miscalculated in Norwegian political contests, but it also illustrates his belief in speaking his mind. All right, so let's keep scrolling. Okay, so let's get down to Unibet. About being a Unibet ambassador, is it going to focus on fantasy football because of your success? It seems to be the perfect medium for the sponsor, you applying mental skills that aren't chess to a different kind of contest. All right. It says, it's as simple as it being something that I find very interesting to talk about and to some extent promote as well. And there's a lot of overlap with people who like to gamble and like to play fantasy football. There's a very obvious connection to make there. Okay, reasonable, obviously. This is something that I'm not super familiar with in terms of like gambling and soccer. I mean, I don't know the context. I mean, I've never looked at soccer because obviously as an American, soccer is not a real sport. So I'm just not familiar with that topic. I mean, I guess, we all know about the one and only, the great Landon Timothy Donovan, of course. I mean, the greatest American soccer player of all time. But in general, like, it's just not something I'm familiar with. All right, so let's keep reading. 1 second. Let's keep reading. Okay. You say that, let me scroll up. You say that on fantasy football podcast that you're not much of a gambler, which might surprise people when you're a Unibet ambassador. How much math is involved in what you play? Okay. Magnus' reply, I think fantasy football has a lot of similarity with poker and with betting, in that you make decisions based on stats, and then that gives you a better chance to be lucky. So to me, it's not the gambling aspect of these things that makes it interesting for me. It is more about trying to make good decisions, to make better decisions than others do, basically based on having a lot of the same data. Obviously, in the short term, there is a huge amount of luck. There is no denying that. But I think that over time, I think fantasy football is definitely in the same category as betting or poker, which is to a huge extent a skill-based game. All right, so Again, I'm not super familiar with fantasy football. I mean, for me, I would say fantasy American football I'm familiar with, or even like I've seen some people I know who plays really big buy-ins from like fantasy baseball. So I know some stuff about it. I don't know I don't know, like, I mean, skill based or not. I mean, I think there certainly are analytics that give people a huge advantage to some extent. So I think like it's no different to me than looking at the stock market in the same way, where like everyone's trying to make the same decision based on data, but there are certain people or certain groups that certainly with analytics, I think have a huge advantage in general. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, so he says, luck is no coincidence in the Unibet slogan. This comes around to luck being a kind of skill. Luck is no coincidence is the Unibet slogan. Luck is no coincidence. Okay, I mean, I could say a lot of things to that, actually. Luck is no coincidence, like, eek. That feels like something I could go rambling on for like a whole stream. So I'm gonna refrain from doing that because like that would become like a whole political issue too. So Magnus says, yes, if you're skilled, you're going to be lucky more often. That's the basic point. Do you see any analog to this in chess at all? I mean, chess is a complete information game, but there are human factors involved. Psychology, maybe bluffing occasionally to a certain extent. Magnus says, I don't think there is any fundamental luck in chess. No. Yeah. Again, I agree with Magnus there 100%. There is luck in chess, but the luck in chess is like, it's like getting a random pairing in an open tournament. Like you get the right opponent who plays, a certain opening in the right round.
Tank TV just subscribed.
Or things of that nature, but in general, that kind of luck, that's not really, it's just a different kind of luck. It's very minimal, I would say. And then he says, when you speed things up, don't you think that it increases the chance factor? Or does it just increase the skill set needed? It certainly increases the variance when the game speeds up and when it becomes more complicated, more unpredictable, but I don't consider it chance or to be a matter of luck. I still feel that it is all skill. I mean, not much that I can disagree with there. I think he's more or less right. I think the skill does matter, but the skill is a different skill set when the game becomes quicker, because it's your intuition and your pure ability as opposed to, say, the preparation aspect, which still matters, but the preparation aspect, the pure calculation of, doing it like a math problem doesn't really exist in the same way. So yeah, I do agree with Magnus more or less here, that it's just the skill set exists in both, but it's a different skill set. Let's keep going. Okay, so, all right. Let's go to the evil side of gambling for a bit. When I look at fantasy football, it doesn't really strike me as gambling per se. Maybe that's because I respect the level of skill involved in things like poker, even though there's a lack of information on the presence of chance. But it doesn't seem to me the same kind of thing that people are worried about. I imagine the whole point of promoting gambling with a clear conscience is you see it as a safe pastime if it is a pastime and skill is consciously involved. Wow. This is actually pretty serious. Yeah, to be honest, I simply don't find gambling very interesting. I don't find online casino games that interesting. As you said, poker, sports betting, and I think also fantasy football, those are in the long run highly skill-based games. They can be extremely addictive. There is no doubt about that. So you need to make it safe, set boundaries. Fair. Okay. But I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with these things. The thing about poker and sports betting, fantasy football, is not quite the same. The thing about these games, when you play them online, if you're even a reasonably smart person, you understand very well that the house has the edge. You understand that you accept it as the premise that when you play there at a casino or online betting site, they're going to have a bit of an edge, and you're going to try to beat them with your superior skills. Or you're just going to play for a bit for fun, which is also fine, but then you accept that you're going to pay a bit of money for the thrill of gambling. But I don't think there is something inherently wrong with person 1 accepting a fee to allow person 2 and 3 to wager a bet between them. I don't think there's any fundamental problem there. Well, the house is an edge, but the thing is, when you go and you play your 6-deck blackjack and you count the cards, the casino tries to kick you out. So I'm not sure I agree with that exactly, because the house does not always have an edge, and if I want to go count cards, it is my human right to go and do that, and I don't think the casino should be allowed to kick me out for trying to make the edge in my favor. So I will say that. All right. The house does not have an edge at blackjack. You're playing 6-deck and you're actually, and you know the true count. So no, that's not true. But when you, when you, when you do that, yeah. I'm banned from Vegas now. Yes, exactly. Let's keep going. I'm kind of joking, but anyway, let's keep going. 1 second. All right, let's keep going. Okay, so business empire. Okay, so now it should start to get quite interesting. Let's talk about what I like to call Magnus Inc. Chess 24. Play Magnus Chessable and Co-Chess. You came with a name for Co-Chess equals coaches, I assume. No, I'm a huge pun aficionado. Unfortunately, it wasn't me, but obviously I like it. How active are your roles with these companies? Lately, I stay a little bit out of the way. Usually, whenever they ask me to do something, they ask me for a favor. I'm very happy to do that, but it's not like I run any of the day-to-day businesses. Clearly, I'm a lot more involved when it comes to the tour that we had and the tour that is coming up. That is something that I'm thinking a lot more about and having much more of a say in. Fair. So investor and promoter mostly? Yeah, absolutely. Is there a sense of this being a big competitive front for you? Are you taking on chess.com and Lichess and any other big online players with this empire you're building? Yeah, we certainly are trying to compete, especially with chess.com. There's no doubt there, but most of all, we're trying to grow chess and to do something special to create a good environment for the best players. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Seems fine. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty of this unless there are questions here where there's something that related to that. Do you consider Lichess a competitor? They seem to be helpful in some of your projects and they would appear to be natural competitor in others. In general, I like these guys, so I wish the Lichess guys everything good. And I think what they've managed to do is amazing. Okay. So the main rival is chess.com. What are your ambitions and what is success in that respect? It's not really all about competing with them. We just want to create good products and are going to make people interested in following our events and eventually also playing on the news site we've got coming up on Chess 24. It's not only about Chess 24 as well. We're trying to grow all of the different companies. Essentially, I'm just there, as you said, an investor and promoter. My main role still is to try and play well. That's, after all, I think the best way to promote these ventures. When I start playing a lot worse, my value for the company will be a lot less. Okay, I'm just gonna say this. I think as far as investor goes, like, yes, he owns shares. And I'm not saying this like from a point of view, but this is my understanding. I'm not so sure that like when the company was formed that he literally like put like millions of dollars into the company. So like when you talk about investor, I mean, he owns shares. I think his father owns shares, and I mean, there are many other people who own shares in the parent company. But I'm not sure that actually in the context of this is actually correct. Because normally, like when you invest, like for example, I'll use Peter Thiel as an example. When he when Peter Thiel invested in Facebook, for example, he put $500,000 of his own money up front into the company. So in the context, yes, he is an investor, but I don't think that it's necessarily in the same kind of way, in that same kind of way that you traditionally think of it being an investor. I will add that. Okay, there was a recent video with Arna Horve about exciting job opportunities as a broadcaster for the next online tour, but this tour sounded a bit like the start of a new world title. Okay, interesting. You'll have to ask him. Tizzles aside, I did ask Arna on business social media site LinkedIn. He gave me a very professional answer explaining that the tour was a private initiative and it was not in any way an announcement of a new world title, official or unofficial, but the message did include a wink emoji. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. So let's keep going. The future of chess. The format of your online tour, sets of rapid matches. A lot of people are talking about it being testing ground or public demonstration of what you would like to see the actual world title format change to. Any truth to that? All right. Oh, Golden Kappa is back. Nice. Do you think Yeah, I guess I've been pretty open about that, not necessarily for the championship title, but about my opinion about how you would determine the best player in the world, and certainly this goes some way to showing that. Do you think COVID-19 situation has permanently changed the status of rapid and blitz events now? I think so, but I also think it's just not realistic to expect people to play long games online. Very true. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I 100% agree there. Long games, it's just not realistic. I also think it is not realistic to expect people to watch it with great interest. So I think the rapid format is excellent for online play because you keep at least some semblance of high quality chess and it probably doesn't take too long. You get more games in a day and that way you get more excitement possibly. Also, nothing I can disagree with there. Let's keep going. You don't think it will impact over the board play when it comes back, that things will speed up more in general? Okay, the big question. I don't know. I think in general, the future of classical chess as it is now is a little bit dubious. Wow. Wow. Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Elitists start malding. Time to start malding. It's time to start malding. Time for people to start malding. I would love to see more Fischer random chess being played over the board in a classical format. Okay, fair. That would be very interesting to me because I feel that the particular format is pretty well suited to classical chess. It's basically you need a lot of time in order to be able to play the game even remotely decently. And you can see that in the same way that Fischer random chess is being played now when it's played in a rapid format. The quality of the games isn't very high because we make such fundamental mistakes in the opening. We don't understand it nearly enough, and I think that would increase it. That would increase a lot if we were given a classical time control there. So I definitely hope for that. For classical chess over the board, I guess it has a future, but I think you have to accept it as it is. There are going to be a lot of draws when the best players in the world play classical chess over the board. There's no way around it. If you don't change something fundamental, that is simply not going to change. It is a little bit sad, but I think it is very, very hard to do something about. I swear, did Magnus suddenly did Magnus become me or something? Because I literally could not have said anything different. I would have said the exact same thing to a T. So the reason that the reason what he says I totally agree with is if you look at Fischer Random Chess 960, we don't have the knowledge base, so you need much more time to figure out what you're doing over the board. And so if you take a look at chess, just pure normal chess, normal arrangement, because of computers, we have so much information that we can play the first 20 moves without thinking. So we can essentially play 20 moves of perfect chess before we have to think, which is why we don't need all this time on our clock. So I definitely think that Magnus is 100% right with what he says in terms of classical chess. I mean, there's always a time and a place for it, but more and more computers have made it so we get to very deep phases of the game before we really have to think. So I agree with him completely on this one. Let's keep going. Okay, what is this? You don't think... Oh, wait, let me scroll down. Sorry, let me put this at the very top. There we go. All right. You don't think engines might open the frontiers again somehow? I find it very unlikely. The fact is that Alpha Zero and Leela are, in terms of the Berlin defense, rather shutting down doors than opening them. I think that's not a very encouraging sign, and you're grasping more and more at straws when it comes to finding playable opening ideas. It is a bit of a shame. Again, I agree completely. I mean, in the old days, you could have played 20 different... Not 20 different, sorry. You could have played 2 or 3 different opening ideas in a various opening, and it would have worked for maybe 6 months. It would have worked for 6 months, a year. Nowadays, you play an opening idea, it's good for 1 game, and that's it. I mean, you get it for 1 game, you better have 1 new idea every single day for every game. So it's very, very difficult. Again, I could not agree more. That makes me wonder, or let me scroll down since it looks like a long answer. That makes me wonder if you've been following these chess variant experiments, I think, by Kramnik. I certainly think it's interesting, and yeah, I'd love to try some of the variants that most resemble chess. I would love to try them in real games. I just think that to some extent we already have a really good variant. That is Fischer Random Chess, and I think that probably also needs to be explored more. Okay, I mean, I agree, because the thing is, the Kramnik variants are very interesting, but they fundamentally alter the game because you're changing the way pieces move. With Fischer Random, same rules, same pieces, just you set them up differently on the board. So I do think 960 actually, you have something that still stays very true to chess. All right, let's keep going. Okay. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Going back to the topic of Rapid being possibly the main battleground for a while, what's it like reanimating GM Hikaru Nakamura? He seems to be more of a rival now than he was when he was world number 2. Yeah, definitely. First of all, I've been mightily impressed with the way he's been playing. When we were doing the invitations for the Magnus Invitational, there was this basic thought to invite all the best players in the world, and there were a lot of people who were given, and I was pushing for Nakamura to be invited there. I was saying that even though he is it has been a long time since he has had any success whatsoever in classical chess. I still thought that in rapid formats he would be a more than worthy competitor. I didn't expect him to be nearly this good. Okay, here come the Pagos. I mean, he's not wrong in the sense of like in the sense of the rankings. I mean, if you look at classical chess, I won the US championship in 2019, but that is probably the only really good result that I've had, I would say, in the last like year and a half or 2 years objectively. So I mean, he's not wrong with that comment. It's been amazing to see the amount of success that he's had, and I also think the match that he played against me, or all the matches, they became very, very difficult for me. I think that he had a very well thought out match strategy to a greater extent than other players have had. It's come to the point that there's no doubt that when it comes to rapid and blitz chess, especially online, he's clearly my biggest competitor. Okay, so I'm going to add something also. I don't know if he talks more about me or not, because I haven't seen this article yet, but where he says that the match strategy, one thing that I think plays really well to my advantage when it came to these online tournaments is that everyone assumes that because I'm streaming so much that I don't have time to study chess. So because of that, I think a lot of people actually, they assume that like I'm just streaming all the time and I'm not studying chess at all. And I think that really does help a lot because people, I think, do make that assumption. And even though Magnus doesn't exactly say that, I mean, I think it's kind of implied in what he says here about the match strategy is that, yeah, like what I came up with for that match, the final match, especially this whole DC4 B5, I mean, like what's it, Vienna Gambit sort of stuff. It's not something that you would expect me to play because I had been playing Queen's Gambit declined every single game, every single event. And so you figure, well, he's doing that every game, and he's obviously streaming like 5 or 6 hours every day, so he doesn't have time to study chess. But I did study quite a bit, so that's actually, I mean, very, very big compliment by Magnus with what he says there. Let's keep going. Okay. Do you think the faster controls will create more serious challengers for you, or do you think you will be just as dominant? To be fair, I don't think I've been very dominant recently. I want to be a lot more dominant than I've been. I think I played well in one of the events at Chessable Masters. Apart from that, it's been fairly mediocre, I would say. I feel like I haven't reached my full potential in these formats, and I would say certainly during the last St. Louis event, I think I was just basically going through the motions. I had no energy or creativity. I was just not playing well at all. I mean, that's actually one of the things I will say about Magnus that's different, is that even when he doesn't play great chess, he's still the baseline, even when he's not playing at his best, is still higher than everybody else. So he's still, I think, other than Lindor's, where I beat him in the semis, I think he won every event, didn't he? I was the only person who beat him in the entire tour, I believe, in a match. I don't think anybody else beat him, right? So that's the thing, is that the baseline is just higher. Thank you, Benjamin Bach. Appreciate it. Thank you for that. But yeah, I actually agree with him, but I don't think it's so much like, I think the energy and creativity is that a lot of these events were like one after the other. So everybody was just playing event after event after event. And when you're doing that, it does start to sap you at some point. And I mean, even I felt pretty tired. The thing that I think really helped me actually, as far as the final match against Magnus, is that I actually bombed out in the, I think Chessable Masters, I lost to Ding in maybe the quarterfinals or something. Like, I lost to Ding really early, and that having that extra like week and a half or 2 weeks, whatever it was, without having to play, I think really helped me a lot. It gave me more of a break, and I really needed that. So I think that helped me a lot for the tour final. All right, let's keep going. Says, is it just as demanding as playing classical then? Yes, I think so. When you play a bunch of games in one day, it is equally exhausting. Agree. Will classical chess in the official cycle still be your top priority? I think it is very, very likely that I will compete for the World Championship next year, but I feel it is very unlikely that I will ever play as many classical tournaments as I did in 2019. Also, another good point. 2019 was insane. If we're talking about 2019, I myself actually, like, I think I spent maybe like 250 days on the road during the year. XQC is playing chess. Right on cue, XQC is playing chess. Hilarious. All right, so yeah, I mean, I played so much last year too. Like, I think I think I agree with Magnus. I think 2019 I played a lot of chess also. I think it will ever have as many events in a year as we did then. 2019 was truly insane. I mean, I think I played something like 15 events or something absolutely nuts in 1 year. It was just too much. So yeah, it's I understand that sentiment completely. Okay, so because of the strain. And so it says because of the strain, yeah, because there is going to be, at least for the next year, a lot of folks on the online tour that's coming up, so I cannot spend all my time traveling. Again, I agree with him. What do you expect? Who do you expect to be your next challenger? One of the guys playing the candidates. I don't know. The two guys who are leading GMs, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave and Jan Nepomniachtchi, and also GM Fabiano Caruana, have a very decent chance. I don't have a better answer than that. Is there anybody you'd find more interesting to meet? By far the best player among them is Caruana, but that doesn't mean he'd be the most ... I assume they mean challenging. I think that would be the most interesting for sure. It's not necessarily what I want. I mean, I don't really know what I want at this point, but yeah, I certainly think he's the most interesting opponent. Sorry. I think that makes sense too. I mean, I pretty normal. Okay, assorted questions. What is this? What do you think of Nakamura's Bond Cloud in the last round of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz? Nakamura played 1 e4 e5 2 king e2 as white versus GM Jeffrey Zhang, an opening known as the Bond Cloud. Okay, let's see what Magnus has to say. I think it was okay. My opinion has always been chess moves are chess moves. They're not much more. In that particular situation, it's not about respect for the game or lack of it. Wow, okay. Yeah, see, so I mean I agree there. I mean, you're moving wooden pieces on a board, or you're electronically moving pieces. Like, I mean, it's just a move on a chessboard. Like, it's just a chess move. So let's keep going. All right. Whoops. Okay, what about respect for the opponent? I just don't find the whole discussion very interesting. Like, when you face it, either you go 2 king e7 yourself and say, I see that you're trying to give yourself a disadvantage here, and I don't want to be a part of that. Now we play on equal ground, or else you try your best to win. Certainly, it's not an ideal situation to be put in, but you do your best. If you're talking about lack... Okay, if you're talking about lack of respect for the opponent, that's far too dramatic. There should be room for some showmanship in these events, but I don't necessarily think it should be a headline creator. Okay, okay, that first sentence is really funny. What do you think about what do you think the organizers think? It's also about what you do after. Clearly, Hikaru's intention was to play 1 e4, I play 1 king e2, or 2 king e2, and after that I play a normal game. He didn't continue to play in a silly way after it. So if you think you are good enough to play 1 e4, 2 king e2, and beat your opponent, sure, go ahead. I don't see the problem. Okay, okay, that's oh wow, this whole bit is really funny. Okay, so let's keep going. Wait, what's that? Okay, there we go. It almost looked like he did it because his stream followers voted for it. You've got to keep in mind that he considers himself a streamer first and foremost rather than a chess player. With that in mind, his choice is not only understandable, it's perfectly normal. Okay, yeah. So this is for you guys. This is for you, chat. It's for you. Yeah. So I mean, I think one thing that I will add. To be very clear about this, that I think is important to note is if you do it in a situation where it fundamentally can alter the tournament, or something really that can go wrong with it, I think there is some justification for not doing it. But whenever I've done it, it's always been a situation where it does not affect something. Like in the Speed Chess Championships, the match is already over, or when I've done it against Jeffrey, it didn't change the situation. I was guaranteed third. I couldn't get fourth. I couldn't get second. So whenever I've done it, it's always been a situation where it won't change something dramatically in the tournament. I think I should say that as well. What do you think about the way his video streaming by his, I assume that means me, is plowing new ground for chess popularity? I think it's very good for him first and foremost, and in general, it's a good thing for chess. I don't think it's necessarily a case of more numbers always correspond to being that much better for chess, but I think overall it's a very positive thing. I just think that we should not lose complete track as chess players of what we are trying to do, which is play good chess. Fair enough. He himself has been thoroughly vindicated in the sense that he finds a lot of success, not only as a promoter of the game, but as a player. I think what he's doing is a huge positive, and it's obviously great for him. Chat, this is for you guys. It's you guys made this happen, chat. Spam a bunch of hearts in the chat, please. This is going to be on YouTube, so spam the hearts, you guys. Spam the hearts. Let's see some hearts in chat. Yeah, nice.
One just subscribed. We did this 3.
Awesome. After getting to see all the attention seekers swarming around you when I was Olympiad team captain in Baku, I'm curious to know if all this has made you reflect a little bit about celebrity life, and if you think about yourself as a role model at all and the implications of that. I'm not particularly guided by those thoughts about being a role model or whatever. I try to live my life in a way that I feel reflects what I want to do, but it's not like I am going to do exactly what people expect of me. That's never, or at least not recently, something that's been important to me. Make sense? Are you more comfortable with these? Let me see. Are you more comfortable with these kind of media storms now? I see that just for fun, you can provoke Liverpool fans in connection with fantasy football, which is a strange kind of hobby. I guess there was a time for a period of a few years ago, where I would barely do interviews at all. I guess I sort of relaxed that policy a bit now. I definitely don't go out of my way to get the most publicity and attention, but I suppose that now I'm a little bit more relaxed about it than I was a few years ago. Fair enough. That's actually true, I would say. Magnus certainly, compared to a few years ago, certainly has he is much more chill than a few years ago. That's definitely true. Is it true that you named Ruben Fine as the player who most resembles your style? Wow, interesting question. Oops. 1 second. I guess at some point I was reading a lot about his games, and I did find quite a few similarities there. I don't think I ever went as far as to say that he's the one who resembles my style the most. It was more a case of I found some similarities. Wow, I never would compare Magnus to Ruben Fine. That's very interesting. Very interesting. It's an interesting comparison. As an old American who has quite a bit of historical interest, I still don't know very much about Fine at all. What made you look into him? This was a few years ago. Frankly, I don't even remember. I think it's just at the point I did that interview, I'd spent the last few days going through a lot of his games, and it just struck me that there were a surprising amount of similarities. But I don't find it that interesting, to be honest, to find out whose play I resemble the most. I don't really know. I think I resemble a bit of a lot of people who play chess very well in the present or the past. Yeah, that's definitely true. One last thing. You've now post London World Championship had a run of form equal to that of the guy who you said there was your favorite player. How do you compare your last classical self to the 2014-15 edition of Magnus? Honestly, I think that the chess that I played in the first half of 2019 is the best chess that I ever played. I just don't think I've played very well since. The second half of 2019 and also my only classical tournament that I played in 2020, they were all just, I wouldn't say decidedly poor, but mediocre at best. So I don't feel right now that I'm on a run of good chess or even good results. The only positive thing about the classical chess that I played in the last year is that I haven't lost a game. Okay. I mean, I think, again, that's true. I mean, 2019, the first half of the year, he was really on fire and playing amazing chess. So that makes sense. Do you think that undefeated streak had anything to do with your form tailing off? Did you get more obsessed with it? Yeah, I think I started thinking more about it, but I think it was also a case of running a bit out of ideas and also running a bit short of energy. And I think as a result of this, I started to lose my confidence as well. I think it was all of these factors. Yeah, I mean, I that makes sense. I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense in terms of what he says here. I mean, I think the thing also is Magnus has been someone who's very good at trying to like push the boundaries, figure out what works and what doesn't. And when you start doing that, you sort of naturally induce more variance and more risk into every game that you play. So I think that also played a role too, like especially in Norway chess, because he was trying to create a lot of dynamic positions and stuff that was very double-edged and very sharp. So it makes sense that he said that. So, all right, pretty good article. Pretty good article. I think. I mean, I agree with a lot of what he says. 960, especially, I think, definitely is true. So yeah, good article. Yeah, very good article. Very well done by by Grandmaster Jonathan Tisdall. Actually, an American Grandmaster. I think he got married and moved to Norway many years ago. But great interview. So that was a good read. I hope you guys enjoyed that. All right, let's put some musique back on. I know the scene is off, but let's put the music back on. What are we gonna play? All right.